Yes! Yes! Come to Papa!
Ever since the Baltimore Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, they have made it to the playoffs every single year. But they have failed to make it past the divisional round for one reason or another. In his rookie season, he went up against the Los Angeles Chargers, which was a team that he had already faced 2 weeks prior, so they had already seen Lamar Jackson and his playing style, so they were able to come up with a new game plan in order to combat that, and it worked. Then the Ravens came in the very next season, and Lamar Jackson was probably the best player in the NFL at the time, winning unanimous league MVP on his way to leading the team to a 14-2 record. They got a first round bye, and then they just happened to have to face a team that was just so hot, even hotter than the Baltimore Ravens at the time. It was the 9-7 Tennessee Titans who came in and just absolutely rolled over Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Then the next year, finally, Lamar Jackson got his first playoff win in a revenge game against the Tennessee Titans, in which the defense absolutely stepped up, and Lamar Jackson did just enough in order to win that game. Then the very next week, an absolute embarrassment, as the Ravens were only able to muster up 3 points in a terrible weather game against the Buffalo Bills. Putting up points has been a problem for the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs. So now they have finally made a signing. And will Sammy Watkins be the savior of the receiving core that the Ravens have been desperately seeking out for the longest time? Welcome to Out of the Pistol. My name is Jose Luis Verduzco. We're going to be discussing, is Sammy Watkins the answer to the Ravens receiver problem? So if you didn't know, yes, Sammy Watkins just signed a 1-year, $6 million deal to the Baltimore Ravens today. It was just announced. Now, for those that don't know, Sammy Watkins is a 27-year-old receiver. He was first drafted to the Buffalo Bills in 2014, a very high draft pick actually, which means that he's very good, as he was taken 4th overall out of everybody in the NFL draft that year. He had a very impressive rookie season, putting up 982 yards, and then he followed that up in 2015, his sophomore season, with 1,047 yards and 9 touchdowns. Sammy Watkins was looking like he was going to be the next best thing, the next stud receiver. While Sammy Watkins, yes, he was 22 years old, and he is now 27 years old. He's a little bit older, he's a little more seasoned. He has by now been on 3 different teams, aside from the Buffalo Bills, He went on to the Los Angeles Rams, and then he signed with the Kansas City Chiefs, where he did win a Super Bowl. But in 2015, Sammy Watkins had a certain offensive coordinator that you Ravens fans, if you are a Ravens fan, as myself, as you can probably tell, might recognize the name of. It is, of course, Greg Roman. That's right, Greg Roman was actually the offensive coordinator for Sammy Watkins and the Buffalo Bills in 2015, which was, again, Sammy Watkins' best career year. So it just made so much sense for Sammy Watkins to come to the Ravens. I told you guys, as soon as I saw that Sammy Watkins was going to be visiting Baltimore, I just had a feeling that he was going to be signing with the Ravens. Now, I was a little bit more surprised that they didn't get the deal done instantly, pretty much. I was almost expecting for, as soon as we heard about Sammy Watkins visiting Baltimore, I was expecting him to walk out with a deal, but no, he actually went ahead and visited the Indianapolis Colts, left without a deal as well, and then it was silent for like a good few days, and then finally we just got the news today on Friday afternoon for me, Friday evening for you guys, that Sammy Watkins has agreed to a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Baltimore Ravens. And again, like I said, it just made too much sense. Greg Roman, that was his offensive coordinator in his career year, and on top of that, we also have, I believe his name is Keith Williams, who is going to be the passing game specialist, and he was actually once Sammy Watkins' personal wide receivers coach. So there was just too many factors that it made so much sense for Sammy Watkins to sign with the Baltimore Ravens, and that's actually what ended up happening. So on to the question, is Sammy Watkins the missing piece? Was he the one player that the Ravens really needed to get in order to truly be a threat in the AFC? Because yes, I think that the Ravens are kind of considered a threat in the AFC, but until they can actually get more success in the playoffs, they will not be taken as seriously as a contender like the Kansas City Chiefs. So is Sammy Watkins the receiver that the Baltimore Ravens flock and Lamar Jackson have been looking for? Well, I don't think so, unfortunately. And again, it's not that I'm not happy about the signing. I think this makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of upside, especially for the price that we paid him. Very cheap deal. I love the deal. 1 year, $6 million is just a phenomenal deal. Great move by EDC there. As much flack as he's been getting this whole offseason, you got to admit that this was a good deal, just based purely on the upside. What if Sammy Watkins is able to replicate his career year when he had Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator in the Ravens offense? But then again, you look at his recent play, even last year, his stats don't jump off the screen at you. Only 421 receiving yards on 37 receptions and 2 receiving touchdowns. Now you look at these and you say, oh my God, this guy's not even that good, right? And I understand. But really, you got to put into context the receivers that Kansas City already had. Sammy Watkins was definitely more of a number 2 receiver / number 3 if you consider Travis Kelce their number 1, which I think most people do. And I don't believe that he's coming here to Baltimore to be the number 1 target aside from Hollywood Brown. I believe that Hollywood Brown will still technically be the wide receiver 1 while Sammy Watkins is the wide receiver 2. Again, I don't know. You guys make your own definitions of what wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 means. You guys, I hear different things from everybody. So I'm excited about this signing because I think, again, the upside is huge. If Sammy Watkins does turn out to be that Sammy Watkins that we saw in 2015 in the Greg Roman offense, oh, this is just going to be a phenomenal signing, especially for cheap. And yes, it will probably be the savior of the Ravens receiving core. On the other hand, what if Sammy Watkins is just what he is? Just a solid wide receiver 2 or 3, right? And I think that that's worst case scenario. I think that he is going to be at the very least if he stays healthy, right? Because that's another question mark about Sammy Watkins. Can he at least stay healthy in critical moments? And especially when it comes to the playoffs, when the Ravens actually need as much receiving help as they can get. I think worst case scenario, Sammy Watkins will be replacing Willie Snead, is what we're going to be seeing. Now, Willie Snead, more of a slot receiver, I understand that, and Sammy Watkins is not necessarily that. More on the outside as an outside receiver. But in Kansas City, you did see him go over the middle a lot, make those tough catches. And what I do love about Sammy Watkins is, while he doesn't necessarily have that same speed as he once did when he was a lot younger, specifically the 2015 season where Tyrod Taylor could literally just throw it up to him because Sammy Watkins would beat the corner that he was going up against because he was just so fast. But he can definitely still go up and snatch the ball out of the air. He can still move the chains. He can go up and have that big catch radius. And that's really what the Ravens really needed, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Not to mention that we saw in the Kansas City Chiefs run, Sammy Watkins came up pretty big for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, especially in the Super Bowl going up against Richard Sherman. So look, high-end Sammy Watkins turns out to be a lot better than a lot of people think he is. Let's not forget he's still only 27 years old. He could still technically be in his prime, even though he has been hurt quite a bit. The very worst you're probably going to get is another veteran option like a Willie Snead, a move the chains type of guy. And that's not at all a bad thing to have in this type of offense. So does this move make the Ravens contenders? Does this make them like a real threat in the AFC? Not necessarily. There's still some holes on the roster that I believe the Ravens should take a look at filling. Like the offensive line still has some problems. Center, potentially right tackle if Orlando Brown Jr. does end up getting traded, will be a position of need. So the offensive line is going to be huge. And I don't think that this will deter the Ravens from potentially signing another veteran wide receiver in free agency. We have to see. Also, they could potentially draft one high. The draft is coming up very soon here, so the Ravens could potentially be looking at that. On top of that, on the defensive side, edge rusher does seem to be a position that, well, the Ravens have needed for quite a few years now. But me personally, I would much rather them focus on building the offense because the offense has been the one that has not been showing up in the playoffs. The defense has done just fine these past 3 seasons. It has been no problem aside from when, the whole Earl Thomas, Derrick Henry stiff arm fiasco. But aside from that, the defense has always been great. They've been good enough. It's time to build the offense. It's time to build up the offensive line. And it's time to continue giving Lamar Jackson more receiving options. And Sammy Watkins is definitely the right foot to start on here. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Out of the Pistol. Now I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this Sammy Watkins signing? Do you like the contract details? 1 year, $6 million. I believe it's actually $5 million guaranteed with $1 million in incentives or something like that, or a signing bonus. I'm not entirely sure. I completely forgot. But let me know, what do you guys think about this signing? And do you think the Ravens could potentially make another move? I want to hear from you guys. So thank you so much. Check out the description box down below. Follow my Instagram, Twitter, all the social medias are down there below. Also, my merch is right below the video. Check that out as well if you really want to support the show. And of course, smash that like button and hit that subscribe button. And once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Later.